One of the great YouTube video series is one by Dylan Winters called Keep Turning Left, where he does a tour of the UK. And the underlying premise in his video series is that in order to really appreciate sailing and really get to know a country, you need to sail close to the edges. And that's what he does. In a very low draft sailboat, he hugs all the nooks and crannies of the coastline and does a lot of exploration there. So I've actually been doing something close to that for over 900 miles now since leaving France, hugging the coastline. And I tell you what, the experience wears thin. First of all, you lose 12 hours a day because of the tide. You know, if you get that wrong, you advance at 3 knots, you know, and it's very frustrating. And secondly, I think the odor of a mud flat in a receding tidal basin is grossly overrated. So, there was an adage to the first generation of aviators that was, in order to stay alive, stay away from the edges. So that's what I'm going to do. From tomorrow, I'm striking out for blue water in the North Sea, and I'm heading direct to Lerwick in the Shetland Islands. So that's a voyage of a passage of about 300 nautical miles, blue water, and I'm ready for it. Here we go. Well, hello, underway for the Shetland Islands. I left my last port of Blythe about 7 or 8 hours ago. I've been making really good time flying along here on a nice beam reach, well over 6 knots. And there, I'm sure you can't see it, but I'm just about dead abeam Edinburgh and crossing the estuary there that's called the Firth of Forth. So, one of the things I wanted to show you this time is how I get the weather on this coastal route. So, one of the tools I'll be using is something I showed you in a previous episode, is the Garmin InReach, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But let me show you how I've prepared for this this trip here. First of all, I did a screen print every 6 hours of my journey from Blythe to the Shetland Islands that you see there. So every 6 hours I have that. And tonight, I'm supposed to have 20-25 knots, but I'm not too overly concerned because it's going to be almost dead downwind. I'll probably drop the mainsail and just have a furled Genoa out. And if I hug the coast a little bit, it's even a little less. But that was the old forecast. That's what I left with. So how am I using the Garmin InReach to confirm or challenge that? So here's the map of Scotland. This is where I left Blythe, Edinburgh, the Firth of Forth, going up to the Shetland Islands. So what I've done is arbitrarily defined this point here is Shetland 1. This point here is Shetland 2, and this point here is Shetland 3. And I have typed those coordinates, the latitude and longitude, into the Garmin InReach on my iPad, and I will periodically request a marine forecast for those areas. And I'll show you how that's done. It's very simple. Okay, so here you can see I've typed in Shetland 1, Shetland 2, and Shetland 3, but I don't have the forecast for those. To get the forecast, all I do is put marine, that I want the marine forecast, whoops. I want the marine forecast, and then I push this button here, get the forecast. So now it's getting the forecast. You can see that it's turning here, getting forecast. So this takes about 2 or 3 minutes. It's sending a signal out to the Garmin InReach. The Garmin InReach is up to the satellite, and it'll come back in 2 or 3 minutes, and I'll show you what the result is. Well, that was very quick. It only took about a minute, and it came back with the marine forecast for tonight. So you can see at 7 p.m. I'm going to have 21 knots of wind, and at 1 a.m. 28 knots. So that's confirmed, that challenging wind, but it's from the south. I'm heading due north, so this is dead downwind. I'll probably drop the mainsail and just be on a partially furled Genoa. The waves about 2 meters. Currents, okay. So it just confirmed what I thought it would be. You can see going out for several days what the trend would be. Now I'm going to be well past there, so I don't really care. So that's how I'm going to do this, updating the weather as I go along. So that just confirms I'm going to have a rough time tonight around midnight, between midnight and 3 o'clock in the morning, but I knew that, and I'm prepared for it, and I know what I'm going to do. So I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see how Shetland 2 turns out. Well, it's now 5 o'clock in the morning. That wind of between 20 and 30 knots, well, I had it all night long. And I just wanted to show you how I coped with that. It wasn't a comfortable night. And I started to film this inside because the wind will probably take it. But what I did was at sunset, let me get out here. At sunset, I dropped the mainsail and just kept the Genoa. And I can see I tied off the boom of the mainsail so that it wouldn't be banging all night long. It's really rough out here, right? Really rolling around, and it's raining, of course. So there's the Genoa. And you can see we're pitching up and down, back and forth. Been like that all night long. But we've made really good time. So that's a good way to handle very high winds downwind. Drop the mainsail and just use the partially furled Genoa. It gets a little rolly, but that beats stressing everything else all to heck. Well, in keeping with the spirit of Eric the Viking, I'm in the North Sea and I'm cold, wet, and beating into the wind. A wind that was not forecast to be. It was supposed to be a beam reach and almost a broad reach. And for the last 4 hours, I've been beating into the wind and making all of 4 knots. So Eric, I've thrown comfort out the door. Aren't we having fun? Well, I wouldn't be honest if I didn't say that my introduction to the North Sea was a rude one. Actually quite challenging. In a period of 12 hours, I had wind from the due south at 25 to 30 knots. And then it's changed to north, really north, at 23 knots. And now I've got 8 knots of wind from the west. You can see the sun is going down here. That's supposed to increase to 18. So it went from south to north to west in a period of 12 hours. And I have to say, it was, right now it's very nice, but it was quite challenging and fatiguing, and anyway, the North Sea has taught me a lesson to be modest in all things, and that's good advice, probably. Well, it's sunrise for another long night in the North Sea, and see, there's a bit of traffic. There's a ship there, and there's another one over there. Whoa! And hiding behind that squall over there, I can see barely the outline of the Shetland Islands. So, another significant entry in my sailing logbook. If all goes well here, in another few hours. Good. Lerwick Port Control, Lerwick Port Control. This is the sailing vessel Isabelle. Good morning.
Isabelle, this is Lerwick Port Control, Channel 12. Good morning.
Yes, Isabelle is about 1 mile out from the entrance to the channel, requesting permission to enter the channel, and I'll also request berthing instructions.
Yes, Isabelle, I see you coming in there from the south. It's all quiet this morning. We have no traffic moving around at this time. And I think if you head up towards Victoria Pier, first pier you come to, and at the moment, I think you're probably going to have to go into the small boat harbour. That's on the south side of Victoria Pier. You'll see we have 3 or 4 yachts in there already on the back too.
Port Control, Isabelle.
Isabelle, Lerwick Port Control, go ahead.
Is there no way to get into Alberton? Well, here it is. Proof positive that Isabelle has sailed from La Rochelle, France to Lerwick in the Shetland Islands. A distance of some, roughly 1,300 nautical miles. Wow, what a trip. Lots of memories, lots of challenges, but we did it. So, while I may not have any Viking blood in my history, I do feel that I share at least a sense of adventure with the Vikings. So I've got to figure out a way to celebrate this in the appropriate way. Maybe I'll get a tattoo. Yeah, I don't like needles. I'm sure I'll come up with some appropriate manner to celebrate my arrival in Viking land. Well done, Isabelle.